Hey guys, Jason here and welcome to the Abyss Garage. Today's video is about what I would consider my daily rider, and that's my 2003 Buell Firebolt. Now this bike I've had for over a decade, been riding it, and it's pretty much been an excellent on reliability and just a great bike to ride. I don't have to really worry about things. Turn the key, start it up and go. With that being said, my front tire is shot. It is just worn out. The rear I had replaced previously, just as in you do like a rear and then a front, then coming around the next time for repair. Noticed under heavy braking, I guess I had blown out a fork seal. And so I'm going to be taking the wheels and the forks off. I'm going to be actually going up to my old dealership and having them do the repairs, swap out the tires, replace the fork seals. Right now, I don't have the time for it between the shovel head build and everything else going on. And quite honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a shop that you trust and it's going to do the work right, properly, you know, not everyone has a tire machine or all the specific tools to rebuild forks. I mean, there's so many different size diameter forks, and I just look at it as the cost. It's not really worth it for the headache for me. So tires, forks, maybe change out the grips, do a brake flush on this. I like to do brake fluid flushes every year, and change the oil and the transmission oil on this bike. So that's what we're doing today. So if you have a Buell, you might find this interesting. So let's get to it. All right, so before we go getting this bike apart here, you may be seeing this here. This I made out of 2x4s a long time ago, and took a jigsaw and used a contour profile gauge underneath the fender itself. If you know Buell's, he had some crazy ideas, which is great. Fuel in the gas tank and oil in the swing arm, and the exhaust is sitting underneath, which makes it difficult because it's not like a traditional motorcycle where you can just jack it up from underneath. And that becomes difficult because you don't want to crush the muffler. Now, there is arrows here, and what I've done is that's in a sense like a cradle for a jack point. So I'll use a regular ATV lift, and I sit this on top, and then I'm able to jack this up, and it sits on there perfectly. I don't have to worry about this bike teetering, rocking from side to side, and I'm able to strap it down. So I'm able to now tie up this bike for any given amount of time, and I don't have to worry about it falling over. And it's really just a time saver, and it's also eases the mind. I don't have to worry about this thing if it's tied up and while I'm working on something else. All right, so not everyone has like a 19mm hex, which I don't. So in the toolkit itself, they have this adapter here, and simply goes in, and it allows you to use a 7/8 inch socket over here to get this wheel off. Alright, so I'm just trying to make my life easier, and also whoever is dismounting and mounting my rims. Simply just pulling off the wheel weights, and I'm going to give these a thorough cleaning to make sure that any of the residue from the wheel weight itself is off of the wheel, so that way you know, when they clean the rim, usually they'll use like a brake cleaner or a solvent like that. It just makes their life easier in general. Plus, by cleaning the wheels, I don't have to clean them when I get them back, and it's just makes life overall easier for everyone. All right, so just a quick tip for anyone out there, and this applies to basically any bike. It doesn't really matter. Whether you're doing the suspension or having someone else do it, I highly recommend writing down the settings. It's just like if you were to take your car to a shop and have them replace the battery, they're most likely not going to pay attention to the radio stations for you, and you have to reset it. It's like the same thing. So like I said, this cabinet, it's like turned into a notepad for me. So I've written down some of the specs here, and I'm just simply going to count the turns and make notes. So that way, when I get the forks back, if they're different, I'll know, and I can set it back to where it was, because that was a really good base setting for me. If I need to tweak it, I can, but it'll get me right back to where I was, where I'll feel comfortable, because there's nothing worse than riding a bike and then not feeling comfortable. I got two tips for anyone out there that is putting forks in on a bike. And the first thing is, it's sometimes difficult to get the fork height exactly the same. You can see I was measuring, or I was writing it down on the cabinet just as a reference point. But the sure way of knowing is when you get the forks in place, to just take the front axle and slide it in. And if it'll thread right away, you know you're lined up. If it's not aligned, it's not going to thread, and you know that your adjustment's off. So it's a lot easier than putting the wheel on and then struggling, trying to figure out why it's not lining up and threading in. And then the other little thing was with the service manual, I use a paper clip and a highlighter, and that allows me to quickly just go through the manual itself and see exactly what I'm highlighting here is torque specs for the front end. Like I said before in other videos, like I'm real picky. Like if there's a torque spec for something, I'd like to torque it. It just makes your mind at ease when it comes to things, and you don't have to worry about, did I over tighten it or under tighten it? And especially with upside down forks, you can over tighten the pinch bolts in the triple tree, and it'll affect the suspension and cause it to bind and not work properly. right, so the Buell project for the time being is complete. I got a lot of work done on this bike, a lot more than I was initially thinking of, but fresh set of rubbers front and rear. Went with those Michelin Pilot Super Sport 2 CTs, so I got that dual compound tire, which is like the best of both worlds. Fresh brake fluid in the system. Don't have to worry about potential moisture in there. It's always good to have fresh brake fluid. I've had in the past where I've let the brake fluid go too long, and I was actually getting like a pulsation feeling in the lever. So bad brake fluid will cause that, so keep that in mind. It's always good to flush it out every year. New set of grips, can't go wrong. It's cheap, and you don't have to worry about holding on now. And yeah, the only other thing I'd say is like on the, I used the paint marker and wrote the mileage down, and also the month and the year of what I did to the oil, so I can use as a quick reference. And then the other thing is a little trick, as you guys could see, getting the grips on can sometimes be a pain, and for that, a compressor and a blowgun works wonders. It's able to pick up the grip, expand it, and slide it over the handlebar, because a lot of times what will happen is you'll start to get the grip on, and then you're panicking about the glue drying or getting stuck in a place because you can only get the grip on so far. So I highly recommend, if you have a compressor, use a blowgun to get the grips on. So that's another little trick for you guys if you saw that. So that's all that I have for today's video on the Buell. If you guys are enjoying this stuff, please let me know. Like it, subscribe. We're going to be doing more work on the shovel head build and some other stuff. And hopefully in the near future, I'm going to be working on my 32 Ford because I have to get going on that as well. So we'll see you guys around for another episode in the Abyss Garage. Take care, guys.